If she wakes, the kingdom will remember the lie we buried. Those were the last words spoken before the ancient chamber disappeared beneath 3 centuries of silence. For 300 years, everyone believed Serafina Whitmore was gone. Not dead, not lost, simply erased. Her name vanished from pack records. Her story became a warning whispered by elders who never wanted young wolves asking too many questions. But beneath the frozen ruins beyond Blackridge territory, behind a wall of ancient stone and forgotten magic, Serafina opened her eyes for the first time in 3 centuries. The first thing she felt was cold. The second was confusion. The third was a voice outside the chamber. A low, unfamiliar growl. Not angry, not threatening, almost afraid. Serafina slowly pushed herself upright, her hands trembling as she looked around the room that had been her entire world for what felt like one endless moment. The candles were gone. The old books had turned to dust. The symbols carved into the walls had faded. "How long?" she whispered. Her own voice sounded strange after so many years of silence. The answer came from the cracked doorway. A massive silver-black wolf stood there, watching her. Its amber eyes carried something impossible. Recognition. Serafina stared at it. "You know me." The wolf did not move. Outside the ruins, the wind howled across the empty valley. The creature stepped closer, careful and slow, as if approaching someone who might disappear again. Serafina should have been afraid. Every instinct told her that a rogue wolf alone in the wilderness was dangerous. But something about this one felt different. She could sense the exhaustion beneath its strength, the loneliness beneath its silence. "You were looking for me," she said softly. The wolf lowered its head. A strange warmth passed through the air between them. Not a voice, not a thought, something deeper, a bond she did not understand. Serafina touched the center of her chest, startled by the sudden feeling that someone had been missing from her life before she even knew their name. "Impossible," she whispered. Mate bonds were supposed to be legends. Stories from another age. Stories that belonged to kings and warriors, not forgotten omegas waking up beneath ruins. The wolf suddenly turned toward the entrance. Its entire body became alert. Serafina heard distant voices outside. "Search every section of the ruins," a man shouted. "If the old prophecy is true, she cannot be allowed to reach the pack." Her expression changed. Prophecy. Pack. They knew she was here. The wolf moved between her and the doorway without hesitation. Serafina looked at the creature protecting her and felt something she had not felt in 300 years. Not fear. Not loneliness. Hope. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. The wolf looked back at her, his amber eyes holding a secret far older than the ruins around them. He was not just a rogue wolf. He was someone who had lost everything once before. And now, after 300 years, he had finally found the one person who could change the fate of the entire werewolf kingdom. The wolf was standing between Serafina and the outside world, but she noticed something that surprised her even more. He was not protecting her because he saw her as weak. He was protecting her because he understood exactly what it felt like to be hunted by a past that never let go. The voices outside grew closer. "The ruins are unstable," one of the men called. "Search carefully. We cannot let anyone from the old bloodlines return." Serafina looked at the wolf. "Old bloodlines?" she whispered. "Who are these people?" The wolf did not answer, but his ears moved toward the entrance. He knew. He knew much more than he was showing. Serafina slowly stepped closer. "You are not a normal rogue wolf, are you?" The creature held her gaze. For a moment, she felt that strange connection again. A quiet pull between them. A bond without words. She had spent her entire life studying old pack legends, but nothing prepared her for the feeling of recognizing someone she had never met. The wolf turned away and walked deeper into the ruins. After a moment, he looked back, clearly expecting her to follow. Serafina almost laughed. "You are very confident for someone who broke into an ancient chamber and refuses to explain anything." The wolf gave a small sound that was almost a sigh. Somehow she understood it. He was offended. "Did you just get offended?" she asked. The wolf looked away. For the first time since waking up, Serafina smiled. It was small, almost forgotten, but it was real. They moved through the hidden tunnels beneath the ruins, away from the search party above. The deeper they went, the more memories returned to her. A hallway where she once studied pack history. A room where elders taught young omegas about their gifts. A garden that used to bloom all year. Everything was gone. 300 years had passed, but the pain of losing it all felt strangely close. I was not supposed to disappear, Serafina said quietly. Someone made that choice for me. The wolf stopped. He looked back. There was something in his eyes. Regret. Not from a stranger. From someone who had carried the same secret for a very long time. Before she could ask, the ground above them shook slightly. The wolf immediately moved toward her, placing himself between her and the falling dust. Serafina noticed something unusual. The moment he came close, the strange mark on her wrist began to glow faintly. The same mark she had carried since childhood. The same mark the old stories said belonged only to a true mate bond. Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. "That cannot be possible." The wolf froze. He looked at her wrist, then closed his eyes. He knew. He had known from the beginning. "You knew who I was," Serafina said. The wolf stayed silent. "You knew I was the one you were searching for." The silence answered for him. She stepped back, hurt replacing confusion. "Why would you hide that from me?" The wolf lowered his head. For the first time, the powerful creature looked less like a guardian and more like someone carrying a burden too heavy to explain. Then, slowly, the air around him changed. Silver light surrounded his form, and the wolf began to shift. Serafina watched as the rogue wolf disappeared, revealing a man standing in the ancient ruins. A man with dark hair, amber eyes, and the unmistakable presence of an alpha. "My name is Adrian Blackthorn," he said quietly. "And 300 years ago, I was the Alpha King who failed to save you." Serafina could not move. The man standing in front of her was the same creature that had guarded her through the ruins. The same amber eyes, the same quiet presence. But now, instead of a rogue wolf covered by shadows, she was looking at a man who carried the weight of an entire kingdom. Adrian Blackthorn. The name felt familiar, not because she had heard it recently, but because it lived somewhere deep inside the memories that had been locked away with her. "The Alpha King," she whispered. Adrian looked away for a moment. "That is what they called me." His voice was calm, but there was something tired beneath it. "Before everything changed." Serafina studied him carefully. "You knew who I was from the moment you saw me." Adrian did not deny it. "Yes." The honesty surprised her more than the secret itself. "Then why did you pretend to be a rogue wolf?" she asked. "Why let me believe you were just another lost creature?" Adrian looked back at her. "Because 300 years ago, trusting the wrong people destroyed everything." The ancient chamber became silent. Serafina crossed her arms. "That sounds like something every powerful person says after hiding the truth." For the first time, Adrian almost smiled. "Almost. You have not changed." She frowned. "You remember me?" Adrian walked toward an old stone wall covered with faded symbols. "I remember a young Omega who stood in front of an entire council and told them they were wrong." Serafina stared at him. "I did that. You did more than that." His voice became softer. "You saw things others refused to see. You could sense broken bonds. You knew when someone was lying, even when they wore a crown." Serafina looked down at her hands. Memories came slowly. Faces. Voices. A crowded hall. Someone accusing her of threatening the balance of the pack. Someone telling her that her gift was too dangerous. "They were afraid of me," she said quietly. Adrian nodded. "They were afraid of what you could reveal." A strange sadness settled between them. Serafina had spent 300 years believing she was forgotten. Now she discovered someone had remembered every detail. "Why did you not wake me sooner?" she asked. Adrian went still. That question hurt more than any accusation. "Because I tried." He looked toward the broken doorway. "For years, I searched for a way to break the seal. But the magic protecting you was connected to the old pack laws. If I forced it open, you might not have survived." Serafina looked at him. "So you waited?" "I guarded the ruins." His answer was simple. "Every year, every winter, every storm." The words were quiet, but they carried the weight of centuries. Before Serafina could respond, a distant howl echoed through the valley. Adrian's expression changed instantly. The alpha inside him returned. "They found us." Serafina looked toward the entrance. "The people who locked me away?" Adrian nodded. "The same group that stole your history. The same group that removed my name from the throne." She took a breath. The world she knew was gone, but the danger was not finished. "Then why come back now?" Adrian looked at her, and for a moment, the Alpha King disappeared. There was only the wolf who had waited 300 years. "Because I could not leave you behind again." The mate bond between them pulsed quietly, not forcing, not demanding, just reminding them that some promises survived even when kingdoms fell. Adrian stepped toward the hidden passage. We need to leave before they reach this place. Serafina followed, but before they disappeared into the darkness, she looked back at the chamber where she had lost 300 years of her life. She was not the same Omega who entered it. She was awake. She was free. And for the first time in centuries, she was ready to discover who had truly stolen her future. The road back to Blackridge was not the road Serafina remembered. 300 years ago, the mountains surrounding the territory had been covered with watchtowers, old pack symbols, and the banners of families who swore loyalty to the throne. Now, most of those signs were gone. The forests had grown wild. The stone paths had cracked. Even the air felt different, like the land itself had forgotten the people who once protected it. Serafina walked beside Adrian in silence for several miles before finally speaking. You really stayed there all this time? Adrian looked ahead. At the ruins? She nodded. 300 years is a long time to stand beside a door that may never open. Adrian was quiet for a moment. A king is supposed to protect his people. He glanced at her. I failed once. I refused to fail twice. Serafina wanted to argue, but the sadness in his voice stopped her. This was not a man searching for praise. This was someone who had carried an impossible promise for centuries. As they reached the edge of Blackridge territory, Adrian stopped. From this point forward, you need to be careful. Serafina looked around. Because of the pack? Because of what you represent? His expression became serious. Some will see you as a miracle. Others will see you as a threat. Because I am an Omega? She asked. Adrian shook his head. Because you are proof that their version of history is a lie. They entered the outer village of Blackridge just before sunset. The moment the first pack members saw Adrian, everything changed. Conversations stopped. People turned. Some lowered their heads in respect. Others stepped back in shock. A young wolf shifter stared at him. That is impossible. Adrian kept walking. The whispers followed. The Alpha King disappeared 3 centuries ago. The old records said he was gone. Then who is she? Serafina felt every pair of eyes on her. She had spent centuries trapped alone, but somehow standing in front of a crowd felt harder. Adrian noticed. Without making a scene, he stepped slightly closer. Not in front of her. Beside her. A small gesture, but one she understood. He was not protecting her like someone fragile. He was reminding the pack that she stood with him. They reached the old royal hall, a massive stone building that had once been the heart of Blackridge. Inside, a group of advisors waited. The oldest among them, Elder Marcus Vale, looked at Adrian with disbelief. You should not be here. Adrian's expression hardened. That is an interesting welcome for the king you claimed was lost. The room became silent. Marcus looked at Serafina. His face changed. Fear. Recognition. Then quickly, control. You found her. Serafina noticed the reaction immediately. You know me. Marcus avoided her eyes. I know the stories. No, she said calmly. You know the truth. Adrian stepped forward. Tell her what happened. Marcus remained silent. That silence said more than words could. Serafina felt the old pain return. Someone had not just hidden her. Someone had worked very hard to make sure nobody remembered her. Before Marcus could answer, another voice came from the doorway. Some ghosts should have stayed buried. Everyone turned. A powerful alpha entered wearing the silver emblem of the current council. His name was Darius Crow. He smiled politely, but his eyes held no warmth. Welcome home, Adrian. His gaze moved to Serafina. And welcome back, little secret. Adrian's wolf stirred beneath his calm expression. Serafina felt the mate bond react, not with fear, but with warning. 300 years ago, someone had stolen her life. Now she finally knew one thing. The people who buried her were still standing, and they were not ready to let her speak. Little secret. The words stayed in Serafina's mind long after Darius Crow left the room. Not because they hurt. She had survived 300 years of silence, isolation, and being erased from history. A few cold words from a council member could not break her. What bothered her was something else. Darius had not looked surprised to see her. He had looked afraid. That meant he knew exactly who she was. The royal hall remained quiet after his departure. The old stone walls carried the weight of forgotten years, and every person inside seemed afraid to speak first. Finally, Adrian broke the silence. Everyone leaves this room. The command was calm, but the alpha presence behind it filled the hall. The advisors quickly obeyed. Soon only Adrian, Serafina, and Elder Marcus remained. Serafina turned toward Marcus. "Start talking." Marcus looked uncomfortable. "You should understand that the past was complicated." She gave him a steady look. 300 years of my life disappeared. I think I deserve more than complicated." Adrian watched her carefully. He knew that anger. Not the kind that destroyed. The kind that came from finally realizing the truth had been hidden. Marcus lowered his eyes. 300 years ago, Blackridge was divided. Several powerful families believed the kingdom needed a different future. A different future? Adrian repeated. His voice became colder. "You mean a different king?" Marcus did not answer. He did not need to. Serafina felt the pieces connecting. They removed Adrian from the throne. They removed me because my gift could expose them. Marcus finally looked at her. "Your ability was dangerous to people who had secrets." Serafina smiled sadly. "So instead of proving I was wrong, they buried me." The room became silent. Adrian stepped closer. "I should have stopped them." Serafina looked at him. "You were one person against an entire council. I was the Alpha King." His voice carried regret. That was supposed to mean something. For the first time, she saw the man beneath the title. Not the ruler. Not the strongest alpha. Just someone who had spent centuries blaming himself for something he could not undo. "Adrian," she said softly, "you waited 300 years for a door to open. You cannot spend another 300 years punishing yourself for what happened behind it." He looked at her, surprised by her words. The mate bond between them felt different in that moment. Not stronger because of destiny. Stronger because of choice. But before either of them could say more, the royal doors opened again. A messenger entered quickly. "Your Majesty." Adrian turned. "Speak." The messenger hesitated. "The council has called an emergency gathering. They are questioning your return." Marcus's expression changed. "They want to challenge your claim." Serafina looked at Adrian. "Because they think you are not the rightful Alpha King anymore?" Adrian nodded. 300 years is a long time. Some believe a throne can be inherited by whoever holds it longest. "And what do you believe?" she asked. Adrian looked toward the ancient banners hanging above the hall. "A throne does not belong to the person who takes it. It belongs to the person willing to protect what it represents." The next morning, the entire pack gathered in the central courtyard. Hundreds of wolves and members of Blackridge watched as Adrian stood before them. Beside him stood Serafina, the Omega they were told never existed. Darius stepped forward with a calm smile. "Before we welcome a forgotten king and a forgotten Omega, we need answers." His eyes moved toward Serafina, especially about her. The crowd began whispering. For the first time in 300 years, Serafina stood before the pack that erased her. But this time, she was not locked away. This time, they had to listen. The entire pack was watching Serafina Whitmore, but for the first time in 300 years, she refused to lower her eyes. She stood beside Adrian in the center of Blackridge's courtyard, surrounded by wolves who had grown up believing she was nothing more than a forgotten story. Some looked curious. Some looked uncertain. Others looked at her like she was a problem waiting to be solved. Darius Crow stepped forward, holding the authority of the current council in every movement. A king who disappears for 3 centuries cannot simply return and demand his crown. His voice carried across the courtyard. And an Omega who was sealed away by the old council cannot simply walk back into our territory without explanation. Adrian remained calm, but Serafina felt the tension beneath his silence. The alpha inside him wanted to protect her. The king inside him wanted to protect the entire pack. It was the same conflict he had carried for centuries. Serafina stepped forward before Adrian could answer. "You want an explanation?" she asked. The crowd became quiet. "Then stop asking why I returned. Ask why I was taken away." A few pack members exchanged uneasy looks. Darius smiled slightly. "Careful. Memories from 300 years ago can be unreliable." Serafina looked directly at him. "That is convenient for people who changed history." The courtyard went silent. Adrian looked at her with quiet pride. She was not hiding behind him. She was standing beside him. Darius turned toward the crowd. Her gift was dangerous. She could see things others could not. She could influence pack decisions. The council acted to protect stability. Serafina shook her head. "No, you acted to protect yourselves." A murmur moved through the pack. Darius's expression hardened. "You were young. You did not understand politics. I understood enough Serafina replied. I understood when people were afraid of the truth. Adrian finally spoke. The council removed my name from the royal records. They declared me lost. They erased Serafina because she knew what happened. His voice was steady, but every word carried the weight of a king reclaiming his place. Darius looked at him. And what proof do you have? That question changed the atmosphere. Because Darius was prepared. He expected anger. He expected a challenge. He expected Adrian to act like the feared Alpha King from old stories. Instead, Adrian simply looked at Serafina. We do not need to fight their lies with more accusations. He turned back to the pack. We will show them the truth. Later that evening, Serafina stood in the old archive chamber beneath the royal hall. Dust covered the shelves, but Adrian had preserved one section untouched. Her records, her research, her life before the silence. She ran her fingers across the old pages. You kept these? Adrian nodded. I could not save you then. Keeping your story alive was the only thing I could do. She looked at him. You really believed I would come back? I had to. His answer was quiet. Because the bond never disappeared. Serafina looked down at the faint mark on her wrist. The mate bond was not controlling her. It was not forcing a choice. It was simply reminding them that something between them had survived time itself. Before she could respond, a sudden message arrived from the outer guards. Someone had broken into the archive wing. One important record was missing, the same record that could prove what happened 300 years ago. Adrian's expression changed. They are not trying to hide the past anymore. Serafina looked toward the dark hallway. They are trying to destroy it. For centuries, the truth had been buried. Now someone was afraid of what would happen when it finally came back. The missing record was not just a piece of paper. Adrian knew that the moment he saw the empty space on the archive shelf. For 300 years, he had protected the remaining pieces of history because he understood one thing clearly. The truth could survive almost anything, but it could not survive being erased completely. Serafina stood beside him, looking at the empty shelf where her own past had been stored. What was in that record? She asked. Adrian did not answer immediately. That hesitation told her everything. Adrian. He looked at her. It contained the original council agreement from the night you were sealed away. Her expression changed. The night they took my life. He nodded. And the night they removed me from the throne. The archive suddenly felt smaller. Every old book, every faded symbol, every forgotten name seemed to carry a secret. Serafina walked toward the shelf slowly. Someone spent 300 years making sure nobody found this. Yes. Adrian's voice became quieter. Because that record proves they were never protecting the pack. They were protecting their power. Before they could search further, Elder Marcus entered the room. His face was serious. You need to leave the archive. Adrian turned. Why? Marcus looked toward the hallway. Because the council is calling for another gathering. They know the record is missing, and they are blaming you. Serafina frowned. They are blaming the person who lost his throne because of them. Marcus sighed. That is how politics works when people are afraid. Adrian looked at Serafina. Stay here. I will handle this. She immediately shook her head. No, Adrian paused. Serafina. I spent 300 years locked away because people decided I was too dangerous to speak. Her voice remained calm, but every word carried strength. I am not hiding while they repeat the same mistake. For a moment, Adrian simply looked at her. The old version of him, the alpha who carried every burden alone, would have argued. He would have ordered protection. He would have tried to carry the entire kingdom by himself. But this time he nodded. Then we face it together. The words were simple, but they meant everything. The council chamber was filled before they arrived. Darius stood at the center, surrounded by advisors who had already chosen a side. Your Majesty, Darius said with false respect. Another historical record has disappeared under your watch. Adrian walked forward. Interesting. The same council that erased history now complains when history disappears. A few pack members looked uncomfortable. Darius ignored the comment and turned towards Serafina. And perhaps we should discuss the Omega who returned after 3 centuries. Serafina stepped forward. You mean the Omega you removed because she knew the truth? The room became silent. Darius smiled. You always were confident. And you always were afraid, she replied. Adrian watched the exchange carefully. This was the Serafina he remembered, not someone who needed a king to defend her, someone who could stand beside one. Then Darius revealed his final move. If you truly believe she is telling the truth, let the pack witness her ability. The room shifted. Everyone knew what that meant. Seraphina's gift had always been feared because it could reveal hidden intentions. Adrian immediately stepped forward. No, but Seraphina stopped him. It is all right. She looked at the pack. They wanted proof. I will give them proof. She placed her hand over the ancient bond mark on her wrist. The air changed. The pack became silent. And somewhere deep beneath the royal hall, something hidden for 300 years began to awaken. The moment Seraphina placed her hand over the ancient mark on her wrist, the entire chamber went silent. For 300 years, people had feared what her gift could reveal. They called it dangerous. They called it unnatural. They called it something that could destroy the balance of the pack. But standing in the center of the council chamber, surrounded by the very people who had erased her, Seraphina finally understood something. The truth was never the thing they feared. The truth was the thing they could not control. A soft golden light moved across the old symbols carved into the floor. The ancient pack markings, hidden beneath layers of dust and forgotten history, began to appear again. Several council members stepped back in surprise. Elder Marcus looked stunned. The original bond records. His voice was barely a whisper. Darius Crow's calm expression finally changed. Only for a second. But Seraphina noticed. She always noticed. You knew this would happen, she said. Darius looked at her carefully. You always were good at seeing things people wanted hidden. No, Seraphina replied. I was good at seeing what was already there. The light from the markings spread across the chamber, revealing words that had been sealed away for centuries. The original agreement between the Alpha King and the Blackridge Pack. The names of the council members who signed it. The promise that the pack would be protected by honesty, loyalty, and trust. Then another message appeared. A record from the night Seraphina disappeared. The room filled with whispers. Adrian stepped closer, reading every word. His expression became colder with every sentence. They changed the records, he said. Darius tried to interrupt. That proves nothing. Seraphina turned toward him. It proves enough. The hidden message revealed that Seraphina had not been removed because she was a threat. She had been protected by an ancient seal after discovering that several council members were manipulating pact bonds and royal decisions for their own benefit. She had been silenced because she knew the truth. Adrian looked at her with a mixture of sadness and relief. For centuries, he believed he had failed to save her. Now he finally understood. She had survived because she was stronger than anyone expected. Darius stepped forward. You think this changes everything? His voice became sharper. The pack has lived for 300 years without you. They need stability, not old memories. Adrian looked at him. A kingdom built on a lie is not stable. It is only waiting to collapse. The pack members watching from the chamber entrance began to murmur. Some had spent their entire lives believing the old story. Now they were seeing the truth for themselves. Darius looked toward Adrian. And what about you? You disappeared too. You abandoned the throne. The accusation landed heavily. Adrian did not deny it. I failed to protect my kingdom. He looked at the pack. But I never stopped protecting my people. His honesty changed the room more than anger ever could. Seraphina saw it. The pack did not need a perfect king. They needed one who could admit his mistakes. Then a guard rushed into the chamber. Your Majesty, the missing record was not stolen. Everyone turned. The guard held a small ancient container. It was moved before the archive was searched. Someone inside the council hid it. The room went completely still. Adrian looked toward Darius. The council member's expression remained controlled, but the silence around him said enough. Seraphina felt the mate bond between her and Adrian grow stronger, not because destiny demanded it, but because they had chosen the same truth. The past was finally exposed, but the person who buried it was still standing among them. The truth had finally returned to Blackridge, but Seraphina learned something important that day. A truth revealed was not the same as a wound healed. The pack had spent 300 years believing a story built on silence. Changing that story would take more than one moment in a council chamber. It would take trust. It would take courage. And it would take a king willing to prove that power was not about forcing others to bow. In the days that followed, Adrian did not rush to claim the throne. That surprised everyone. Many expected the Alpha King who had returned after centuries to demand loyalty immediately. Instead, Adrian opened the royal archives. He listened to pack members who had questions. He met with families who had lost pieces of their history. He allowed the people of Blackridge to speak, even when their words were difficult to hear. Serafina watched him from the balcony of the old palace. "You could have taken control the moment you returned," she said. Adrian looked toward the village below. "A king who only knows how to command is not a leader." She smiled slightly. 300 years alone taught you that. 300 years alone taught me many things." He looked at her. "Mostly what I should have done differently." Serafina was quiet for a moment. She understood regret. She had lost 3 centuries of her life. But she also understood something Adrian was slowly learning. The past could explain a person. It could not decide who they became. The investigation into the old council finally revealed the full truth. Several leaders had hidden records, changed history, and removed anyone who threatened their control. But when the pact demanded punishment, Adrian made a different choice. "Justice is not about creating another cycle of fear," he told the gathered wolves. "It is about making sure the same mistakes cannot happen again." Those words changed something in Blackridge. The pack did not follow him because they were afraid of his alpha presence. They followed him because they believed him. And for Serafina, that was the greatest proof that Adrian had truly returned. Not as the strongest wolf, not as the ruler with the oldest claim, but as the leader he had always wanted to become. Weeks later, the ancient ruins where Serafina had awakened became a place of remembrance. The pack restored the forgotten chamber and created a garden around it, not as a monument to tragedy, but as a reminder that forgotten voices still mattered. Serafina stood among the flowers with Adrian beside her. "Do you ever think about those 300 years?" she asked. Adrian looked toward the mountains. "Every day. Does it hurt?" He thought about the question. "Sometimes." Then he looked at her. "But I do not want to lose the future because I am trapped by the past." The mate bond between them remained quiet and steady. It was not a chain. It was not a command. It was a promise they chose every day. Serafina had once been an Omega whose name was removed from history. Now she stood beside the Alpha King as a voice the entire pack respected. Adrian had once been a king without a throne. Now he ruled not because he demanded loyalty, but because he understood responsibility. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, the rogue wolf who had waded through centuries finally had a place to call home. Because sometimes the greatest strength is not found in power, crowns, or titles. Sometimes it is found in the person who remembers your worth when the entire world has forgotten your name.